Word, pilot. Description, a person who operates an aircraft, like a plane or helicopter. It can also refer to someone who leads or guides a ship, or even a new project or initiative. It describes someone in control or responsible for directing something. Phrases of example. First, the pilot was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. Second, he was a pilot, eager to soar above the clouds. Third, she dreamed of becoming a pilot, defying all expectations. Word, organizational. Description, relates to the structure and arrangement of a group or system. It describes something that involves planning, coordination, and a clear hierarchy. It is often used in contexts discussing businesses, institutions, or projects needing efficient management. Phrases of example. First, the organizational structure felt more like a labyrinth than a framework. Second, her organizational skills were remarkable, a necessity for managing such a chaotic household. Third, the lack of organizational clarity hindered the team's ability to achieve its goals. Word, kind. Description refers to a person who is friendly, generous, and considerate. It describes someone with a pleasant and helpful nature. It is used to describe someone's character or personality and their willingness to help others. Phrases of example. First, a kind heart is the best legacy. Second, be kind to one another. Third, the greatest kindness is to live for others. Word, community. Description, a group of people living together in the same place or sharing similar interests. It describes a feeling of belonging and connection among individuals. It can refer to a neighborhood, an online group, or a shared identity. Phrases of example. First, the strength of a community lies in its people. Second, a community is a group of people united by common interests. Third, we are all part of a larger community, connected by our shared humanity. Word, inch. Description refers to a unit of measurement equal to 2.54 centimeters. It describes a very small distance and is often used to describe gradual movement or progress. It can also refer to a small amount of something. Phrases of example. First, every inch of him was a promise. Second, he moved an inch closer to the edge. Third, not an inch of me wants to go. Word, detain. Description means to hold someone or something back, often temporarily, usually by legal authority or for questioning. It implies restriction of movement or freedom and suggests a delay in a process or journey. It is a formal word. Phrases of example. First, he was detained by the guards for questioning. Second, the authorities detained him, suspecting him of espionage. Third, she found herself detained by a sense of obligation. Word, national. Description relates to a country or its people. It describes something that belongs to or represents an entire nation, such as national holidays, parks, or teams. It signifies a connection or belonging to a specific country. Phrases of example. First, the national park was a refuge from the city's clamor. Second, it was a national disgrace, and he felt responsible. Third, she represented the national spirit of hope and resilience. Word, feather. Description, a lightweight covering of birds, often soft and fluffy. It can refer to individual plumes or a collection of them. It's also used metaphorically to describe something delicate or light in nature. Phrases of example. First, a single feather can float further than a heavy stone. Second, the feather floated down, a silent promise of change. Third, like a feather in the wind, hope can vanish in an instant. Word, why. Description, used to ask for a reason or explanation. It can also express surprise or disagreement. It's a very common word used in basic questions and conversation to understand cause and effect. Phrases of example. First, why did you do that? She asked, her voice trembling. Second, why are we here? To love, to learn, to grow. Third, Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye? Word, opera. Description, a dramatic work set to music, typically with singing, orchestral accompaniment, and stage scenery. It combines music, theater, and visual arts to tell a story, often involving elaborate costumes and sets. It's a formal art form with a rich history. Phrases of example. First, the opera house was a place of dreams, of soaring voices and tragic tales. Second, she found a peculiar solace in the grand opera. Third, the air vibrated with the music of the opera, a torrent of emotion. Word, specimen. Description, a sample of something natural or manufactured, used for examination or analysis. It's often used in scientific or medical contexts, referring to a physical example for study, research, or diagnosis. Phrases of example. First, the museum displayed a curious specimen of avian evolution. Second, he presented a specimen of his wit, sharp and unexpected. Third, the soil yielded a remarkable specimen of late. Word, message. Description, a communication, often written or spoken, intended to convey information. It can be a spoken conversation, a written note, or an electronic communication. It's a way to share a thought or feeling. Phrases of example. First, I have a message for you, but you cannot receive it. Second, he sent a message of hope to all the people. Third, the message was clear. No more delays. Word, matching. Description, describes something that corresponds or aligns with something else. It indicates a similarity or agreement between two or more things, showing that they fit together or are compatible. It suggests a deliberate pairing or selection. Phrases of example. First, the matching of her smile to his was a signal of their shared history. Second, he found a matching scar on his own arm, a chilling revelation. Third, the patterns were subtly matching, yet subtly wrong. Word, update. Description, refers to a revised or improved version of something. It can be a change to software, information, or a report. It signifies making something more current or bringing it closer to the present. Phrases of example. First, I need an update on the situation, please. Second, she gave him an update on her progress with the project. Third, the system received an update overnight. Word, evolve. Description, to develop or change gradually over time. It describes a process of transformation, often in a natural or organic way. This can apply to living things, ideas, or systems undergoing modification. Phrases of example. First, human societies evolve, transforming and adapting to new circumstances. Second, the language is always evolving, always changing, a restless river. Third, life evolves in strange and unexpected ways, full of both joy and sorrow. Word, suffering. Description, refers to the state of experiencing pain, distress, or hardship. It describes a condition of enduring something unpleasant, whether physical, emotional, or mental. It can also signify empathy or concern for someone else's pain. Phrases of example. First, the suffering of others is a burden to us all. Second, suffering is merely the shadow of greatness. Third, the greatest suffering of all is to feel lost. Word, convention. Description, refers to an officially recognized gathering of people with a shared interest, or a widely accepted custom or practice. It can describe a formal meeting or a general understanding of how things should be done in a society or group. Phrases of example. First, a convention is a meeting of minds, a dialogue to shape our shared future. Second, the rules of convention often stifle creativity and true expression. Third, she defied convention to pursue her passion for science, a path rarely taken by women. Word, engaging. Description, describes something that captivates and holds your attention. It implies a compelling and interesting quality, drawing the audience or participant in. It suggests something lively and stimulating, preventing boredom or disinterest. Phrases of example. First, the play was engaging, and the audience was captivated by the actor's performance. Second, her art was engaging, drawing viewers into a world of vibrant colors and intriguing forms. Third, he possessed an engaging personality, effortlessly charming everyone he met. Word indicate. Description means to point something out or show that something is likely. It can suggest a fact or feeling without stating it directly. It's used to signal or display information, often through signs or actions. Phrases of example. First, she indicated that she did not want to be disturbed. Second, the signs indicate a difficult road ahead. Third, his silence indicated a deep understanding. Word media. Description refers to the means of mass communication, like television, radio, newspapers, and the internet. It's how news and information are spread to a large audience. It's a plural noun, so use the media. Phrases of example. First, the media can be a powerful tool for good, or it can be a weapon. Second, the media is the message. Third, the media had been quick to condemn, slow to understand. Word fold. Description refers to a part of something that has been bent or creased. It can describe a physical bend in paper or fabric, or a division or section within a larger structure, like a mountain fold. It implies a line or edge created by bending. Phrases of example. First, the whole world seemed to fold inside of me. Second, she folded the letter, a silent promise held within. Third, life is a long game of folding and unfolding. Word crush. Description means to overcome or defeat decisively, often in a competition or argument. It implies a significant victory or to completely subdue someone or something. It's used to convey a sense of thorough dominance or suppression. Phrases of example. First, the weight of expectation threatened to crush his spirit. Second, she felt the crushing weight of responsibility settle upon her. Third, the relentless march of technology would crush traditional crafts. Word lazy. Description describes someone who avoids work or activity and prefers to rest. It suggests unwillingness to work or exert effort, often implying a lack of motivation or diligence. It can be used to describe a person's character or behavior. Phrases of example. First, he was a lazy student, always avoiding his studies. Second, a lazy mind is worse than an empty stomach. Third, he was too lazy to even try. Word rough. Description describes something uneven, not smooth, or harsh to the touch. It can also mean severe or difficult, referring to conditions, experiences, or personalities. It implies a lack of refinement or ease. Phrases of example. First, the sea was rough and the storm raged on, but the sailor persevered. Second, life is rough, and it's not always easy, but we must keep going. Third, the journey was rough, filled with challenges and setbacks, but it was worth it. Word involve. Description means to include or be a part of something. It signifies participation in an activity, situation, or plan. It can also mean to draw someone into something, often a complicated or difficult situation. Phrases of example. First, he involved himself in a dangerous affair, and his life was forever changed. Second, they involve you in a plot that is bigger than you can imagine. Third, it involves a great deal of faith and a great deal of courage. Word joint. Description describes something belonging to or shared by two or more people or entities. It indicates a partnership, collaboration, or shared ownership of a thing, responsibility, or endeavor. It's often used in business or legal contexts. Phrases of example. First, the joint efforts of our team proved vital to success. Second, a joint venture with a local partner seemed promising. Third, the two companies formed a joint partnership. Word pretend. Description means to act as if something is true when it is. It describes a false display of feelings or actions, often for entertainment or to deceive someone. It implies a deliberate attempt to create a false impression. Phrases of example. First, I had to pretend that I was happy, even when I wasn't. Second, let us pretend that we are not here. Third, she had to pretend to be strong, to hide her fear. Word, award. Description means to give someone or something a prize or honor, often formally. It signifies recognizing achievement or excellence. It can be used for prizes, scholarships, or official recognition of accomplishment. Phrases of example. First, a man who is given an award is not a man who has won it. Second, he would award her with a smile. Third, to award a man is to acknowledge his humanity. Word, wrong. Description means to be incorrect or not right. It indicates that something is inaccurate, faulty, or deviates from what is expected or correct. It is often used to express disagreement or to point out an error. Phrases of example. First, something was wrong with the way he looked at her. Second, nothing went wrong, but it felt wrong all the same. Third, it feels wrong to be happy when others are suffering. Word, concert. Description, a performance by musicians or singers, usually in front of an audience. It's an event where music is played live, and people gather to listen and enjoy the performance. Phrases of example. First, the concert was loud, but I couldn't hear anything over my racing heart. Second, we went to a concert, but it was raining and everyone was soaked. Third, the whole town gathered for the summer concert, a tradition for years. Word, down. Description indicates a lower position or state. It describes movement to a lower place, a reduction in quantity or intensity, or a feeling of sadness or disappointment. It's often used to express a decrease or a negative change. Phrases of example. First, I looked down at my hands. Second, he fell down the rabbit hole. Third, look down and you will see the answer. Word, constitutional. Description relates to the principles or structure of a constitution. It describes something permitted or established by a constitution, or connected to fundamental rights and laws of a country or organization. It's often used in legal or political contexts. Phrases of example. First, the constitutional question was deeply entwined with the issue of slavery. Second, his interpretation of constitutional rights was quite radical. Third, the constitutional amendment sought to address the limitations of federal power. Word, green. Description describes the color of grass or leaves. It can also refer to something related to nature or environmentalism. It is used to describe things that have this particular color or are associated with nature. Phrases of example. First, the grass was green and the sky was blue. Second, he looked at the green fields, a vision of peace. Third, the leaves were green and vibrant, the promise of life. Word, detail. Description, a specific piece of information or fact. It can refer to a small part of something larger or describe the intricacies of a subject. It's used to explain or clarify something more fully. Phrases of example. First, pay attention to the detail. Second, every detail matters in a life like ours. Third, the small details sometimes make all the difference. Word, awkward. Description describes a feeling of discomfort or unease, often in social situations. It can also refer to something clumsy or lacking grace. It suggests a lack of smoothness, either physically or in behavior, leading to a feeling of embarrassment. Phrases of example. First, she had a way of being awkward that was somehow beautiful. Second, it was an awkward silence, the kind that only two people who love each other can have. Third, he was a tall, awkward boy, all arms and legs. Word, dialogue. Description, a conversation between two or more people. It describes the exchange of words and ideas in a discussion or a story. Dialogue is often used in plays, books, and movies to show how characters interact. Phrases of example. First, I heard the dialogue that they were having. Second, the dialogue was lively, filled with laughter and playful banter. Third, a short dialogue confirmed his fears, the worst having come to pass. Word, widen. Description, means to make or become wider. It implies an increase in breadth or scope, often referring to physical spaces or abstract concepts. It suggests expansion or a change from a narrower state to a broader one. Phrases of example. First, his eyes widened, reflecting the sheer terror of the situation. Second, the river widened, flowing towards an unknown destination. Third, the chasm widened with each tremor, a gaping maw of despair. Word, regularly. Description, means at consistent intervals or on a recurring basis. It describes something that happens often or as a habit. It implies predictability and routine, suggesting a pattern of occurrence over time. Phrases of example. First, I came regularly to see her, although it was not my intention. Second, she would regularly write letters to her family, full of hope and dreams. Third, he regularly inspected the machinery, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Word, communication. Description, the process of conveying information, ideas, or feelings. It involves sharing thoughts and understanding between people through spoken words, writing, or other means. It's about connecting and exchanging messages effectively. Phrases of example. First, effective communication is the key to successful relationships. Second, communication is the medium through which the world finds itself. Third, the most effective communication is when you can be understood without speaking. Word, warrant. Description, a formal legal document authorizing an action, like a search or arrest. It signifies official permission based on probable cause. It's often used in legal or official contexts, denoting a justifiable reason or authorization. Phrases of example. First, there was no warrant for such optimism. Second, he sought a warrant for his actions, a justification for his despair. Third, the judge denied the warrant, citing lack of probable cause. Word, surface. Description, the outer layer or uppermost part of something. It can refer to the top of water, land, or an object. It also describes the apparent or visible aspect of something, masking what lies beneath. Phrases of example. First, the surface of the lake was like glass, reflecting the stars. Second, beneath the surface, things were not as they seemed. Third, the water's surface shimmered in the moonlight. Word, chemical. Description, describes something relating to chemistry or chemical substances. It indicates a substance's composition or properties. It is used to describe materials, reactions, or processes involving chemical compounds. Phrases of example. First, the chemical balance of the world is shifting. Second, a chemical reaction occurred, filling the lab with fumes. Third, the old house smelled of dust and a faint chemical odor. Word, deed. Description, a notable or important action, often involving great effort or courage. It suggests a formal or heroic act, frequently recorded for posterity. It can also refer to a legal document transferring ownership. Phrases of example. First, a good deed is never forgotten, even when done in secret. Second, every act, every deed is an act of faith. Third, the consequences of a single deed can echo through generations. Word, youngster. Description, refers to a young person, often used affectionately or to indicate someone inexperienced. It can imply immaturity or a lack of knowledge, but also convey a sense of endearment. It's often used in informal contexts. Phrases of example. First, the youngster's ambition was a flickering candle in a vast darkness. Second, he was a youngster, still grappling with the weight of inherited legacy. Third, the youngster displayed a disconcerting aptitude for subversive thought. Word, invent. Description, means to create something new, like a device, story, or method. It describes the act of bringing something into existence that didn't exist before. It's often used when discussing innovations or original creations. Phrases of example. First, he did not invent anything that was not already there. Second, I love to invent a story about the people I see. Third, we must invent our own happiness, or we shall never find it. Word, average. Description means typical or usual, representing a central value in a set of numbers. It describes something that is not extreme or exceptional, but rather falls within a common range or middle ground. It's often used in calculations or comparisons. Phrases of example. First, I think the average man is a poor creature, and I am glad I am not an average man. Second, he was a good average boy, and he loved his mother. Third, there are no ordinary people. You have never talked to an average mortal. Word, invention. Description is a new thing that is created or designed. It can be a device, a process, or an idea that didn't exist before. It often represents a clever solution to a problem or an innovative way of doing something. Phrases of example. First, the invention of writing changed the world. Second, the greatest invention is the mind. Third, an invention requires a vision, and the vision requires courage. Word, reception. Description refers to the way someone or something is greeted or received. It can also describe the quality of a signal, like a radio or TV signal. It's used when talking about welcomes, hospitality, or signal strength. Phrases of example. First, the reception was a grand affair, glittering with jewels and laughter. Second, he gave a curt reception to her polite inquiry. Third, the warm reception she received was a surprise to everyone. Word, tell. Description means to communicate information, news, or a story to someone verbally or in writing. It's a basic way of sharing details or expressing something to another person. It can also mean to instruct or order someone. Phrases of example. First, I will tell you a story. Second, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Third, I cannot tell you how much I miss you. Word, life. Description refers to the condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, or the period between birth and death. It can also describe a way of living or a person's existence. It's a basic concept relating to being alive. Phrases of example. First, it is the life of the mind that matters. Second, the life of a man is but a shadow. Third, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.